3, 2, 1, go live. You can.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to our sort of after show of A Bond for Life. I hope many of you have joined us here too. And we are looking forward to having a discussion with you, showing you some behind the scenes footage of how this documentary was actually made. And we're both here. This is Benjamin, who made this whole thing possible. And it's me, my humble self, who was in charge of making the music for this documentary, which was, in fact, the first step that Benjamin and I took together. It was the project that connected us together, and that led to a great friendship as well as a working relationship that has lasted many years. I was quite surprised how many years, because you tend to forget about time. And when I saw the numbers that it was released back in 2016, I mean, that's already 8 years ago. That was quite something. And now uh, it was sort of mentioned that back then we traveled through a couple of cities and went to a couple of cities, showed this in a cinema. Among the cities was Germany, Spain, as well as Switzerland. And we had a lot of fun doing it. And also, Benjamin has raised some money for UNICEF, which he then gave to them. So that's why Benjamin has decided not to put this on YouTube for a very long time, but now he thankfully has decided to do so. And I don't know how it was for you, Benjamin, but for me, it was a very, very particular feeling and a very particular watch, because I sort of remembered a couple of things of it, but I forgot so much of it in terms of music, of quotes, of interviews, and the whole thing. And it was really, I mean, maybe that's because I was involved very early on, and it's also become part of my heart project that I still look back to very fondly. So maybe I'm certainly partial to it, but the documentary to me was very, very special because it works on so many levels. It's a documentary. It tells a very personal story. It tells something about the Bond fandom, about Bond fans, about Bond actors, Bond VIPs. But it's also a globe-trotting event, so to speak. And then it's also, it's also like life. There's like the lows, the highs, and then it very organically intertwines bonds and the personal story. And then the end shot on the grave of your mother was just connecting it to the beginning. So it was a very, very impressive documentary. And again, I hope don't come off too partial, but to me it was very special. And I would like to hear your opinion as well. So please write it in the comment section. I will be monitoring. So Benjamin, how was it for you after 8 years seeing this again?
Well, quite emotional, I must say. And you don't think it will be because you've made it. You've been there. And through this whole process of filming from 2014 to 2016, we filmed almost until 3, 4 months before the premiere. So I've been there. I lived the story. I put it together. I've seen this material so many times. But going back to it after 8 years, you're right. It is always emotional because it is my story. And a lot of people after the premiere came to me and said it's very brave to put this story out there in that way. And I never thought about that because I don't have a problem speaking about my personal experiences of that time, as I do in the documentary, because I think at some point maybe it also helps people, and from that perspective, it's very important to me to tell these kinds of stories, and
Mhm.
you're right. Seeing it again is, you mentioned earlier that it's difficult to go to the loo in between or to get
Yes,
something to drink.
absolutely.
I had the same feeling, although I did go to the loo, but at a point where I exactly know what is going to happen. But
Hmm.
you're right. And I almost shed a tear in between,
Hmm.
although, as I said, I lived through it. But being
Right.
confronted with it is very, very important because I
Yeah.
always said you cannot change the future if you don't understand the past. And that
Absolutely.
includes your own past and your own story, and everybody should remember that. And another vital thing that I wanted to tell people at the end of the film, the last images you see with the grave of my mother, you mentioned it, is life is short, people. So make the most of it. Make a journey, make your personal journey, and make it count. And I think while making this film, I did exactly that. I made it
Absolutely.
count because it was a journey, very short, 2 years of filming, when you look at an entire lifetime. But it was very important. It was
Yeah.
dealing with my past, confronting it, and finishing with it. And that is still emotional until this day. Yeah.
Yeah. And I understand, of course, it's something special and I could feel it today that, of course, it was very nerve-wracking, I can imagine, for you to now put this out there in the whole internet. And let's just pick up a couple of comments. Let me just go through them real quick to
Yes.
see a couple of things. So first of all, hi to everybody who's in the chat, who's joined us. It's great to have you here.
Yes. Hi.
This should be an interactive experience. So please feel free to comment. Please write the feedback and stuff like that. Like to pick up a couple of things. Great Wuta wrote, you should consider putting the film on 2B as well. They already had No Time to Cry parody and the other fellow documentary there as well. So that's maybe something you can keep in the back of your head.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Always say yes to adventure. Says it was very moving to see such a personal journey. Absolutely, yes. And then a question, Benjamin, did you remake the whole voiceover of the movie entirely recently?
Wow, I know. No, I didn't. Most of it is the original sound from On Location. There was just 2 instances in the film where you hear a voiceover that was recorded later. The first one is during the Austrian sequence in Kitzbühel, during the ski scene. And I will show you a making of Kitzbühel in a short moment, where I speak about Hannes Oberhauser, who lived in Kitzbühel, and my sound recorder was recording on the wrong file. It usually records MP3, but it was accidentally switched to a WAV file, and they become very large. So the memory was eaten up by a very large WAV file from what we filmed before, so it didn't record anymore. But the camera captured the sound, so I could hear what I said, but it was way off in the distance. So I trained the lines and memorized them, and then I tried to lip sync myself, which is tedious. It's horrible. I couldn't work in that profession. It's really tedious. And the second example was on the roof of the Hotel Atlantic. When I come out of this room, which is sort of a room before the actual roof where they keep relics from the history of the Hotel Atlantic. It has a name, but I forgot it. The room has a name. And I couldn't use that because I had the microphone pinned on the concierge of the hotel, and he was waiting for me, and my second microphone was not recording. It didn't record. For I don't know why. I didn't press the button. Sometimes this happens. I'm quite stupid, you wouldn't imagine. And again, the camera captured the sound, and I could dub myself. I could lip sync myself. Just the line where I say, taking you to the roof of one of Germany's most famous hotels. And it matched perfectly. But you hear it because the ambience sound of the roof is not there. Yeah. But otherwise, everything was recorded on location. Yeah.
And then we got another comment by Tom Baker who writes, I think it's great. It's a James Bond fan channel plus a lot more on top of that. Benjamin, that goes to you.
Yes, thank you, Tom. Yes, variety is very important to me.
Right.
I need variety.
Exactly, and that's also a question when we talk about a bond for life. You said it took about 2 years to make.
Mm.
I'm still impressed, and I want to know a little more because, of course, we have talked a lot about this stuff, but the mere logistics of this whole project. I mean, how was this done? I mean, you visit so many locations, so many countries.
Mm.
You meet up with so many people in this documentary. I mean, you sort of putting yourself down for this, but I think it's very impressive. And maybe you could talk us through a little bit behind the scenes, sort of how this actually unfolded over the course of 2 years.
Mm. Yeah, the weird thing is always the starting point, where you think of making a documentary like that. And the starting point was a totally different one. What I wanted to do was I wanted to digitize old video footage, like from my fan film, which was ridiculous in a way. I laughed so hard when I saw it again this evening. It's so weird. Like, here's the scene from the film, and you see absolutely nothing. It has no dialogue, no message, no nothing. I just used this old video material. I wanted to make a film on my fan film. But then I thought, that why not tell the whole story of being a Bond fan? I think that is much more important. It would much more have a message. And then I thought about, what would this message be? And what can it be? What would be useful? What would actually help people? And the UNICEF aspect was not on the table at that point. The UNICEF aspect came when I had shot the first test scenes and some of the material in the Braunschweig sequence, which was partly blue screen and green screen filming. And then I thought, okay, would it be doable to, in a normal runtime of a feature documentary, which is normally between 45 minutes and 90 minutes, to guide people through your life with Bond? And at that point, it was 20 years. Now it's 8 more years. So I could do this whole thing again, you know? And yeah, then it gradually built together because I have a timeline. I know where it started. I know individual things that happened, like first Bond film, death of my mother, the changes, moving in with my cousin, being thrown out by my cousin, seeing the second Bond film, seeing the third Bond film, and from then on, how you ended up in the Bond world. And that was an easy line to follow. And then I thought, okay, this can work. But for every scene, you have so many things to consider and so much to think about. Every single camera position. The final scene has to be in my head already, how it looks like. It's just like when you look at that sequence from my childhood, when you see this South German village, there is the church always in the center, and in every shot you see this church. So I had this scene made up in my head and put the camera exactly where I knew this would fit. So that was a very important part, but it was also a very strenuous task to know exactly where to put your stuff. A lot of things went wrong. Yeah, they do on every film set, no matter what film you do. But it was fun always. There was only one instance in London where I lost my tripod, where after that I lost my patience. And to this day I'm still sorry to the people who were with me, my close friend Alain from Paris, and my
Which you saw.
And my friend from America, Dean. We were visiting Bond in Motion. The scenes are in the film, and when we came out we took a group photo, and I put my tripod on this fence there. I hung it at the fence, and then we went for lunch, and I realized the tripod is gone. Oh God, I left it at the Bond in Motion. So I left them at lunch and ran back, because it was not exactly around the corner, because I was scheduled after lunch at the College of Arms. We really had a scheduled meeting there for the filming inside and outside. And inside, and in the end, we weren't allowed to because it costs money, because in England it's rather business than pleasure. And the tripod was gone. And then I thought of buying a new one, and I was sort of unfriendly to my companions because my stress level was going through the roof. But these things happen. No, these things
Okay.
happen.
And we want to go through this segment that we're doing now a little bit, topic by topic. So we're going to talk about the locations, the different ones. We're going to talk, and I'm looking very forward to this, about the different guest stars that appear. Because what you may not know is that a good portion of the Bond stuff that happens in a Bond for Life, as far as I remember, it was also a bit of chance. For instance, the whole event with the Bond girls that allowed you to do some recordings with the Bond girls was something that was not, you can't plan these things. It came about, it was organized, and so you could sort of get into this and take this occasion to do something there. First of all, I want to ask you, in those 2 years, was there a point, or maybe multiple points, where you thought that you were in way over your head and this would never get made or it would never be finished, or were you always confident that this would actually see the light of day?
I was confident. Yeah.
Okay.
I was very confident that I would release that I would finish the project. There, for me, in my mind, there was no doubt about it. If it wouldn't have been in the cinema, it would have been on a smaller scale. I don't care. Maybe even at home with just 5 friends. I don't care. Because I don't do these projects to attract large audiences. And the same is true for YouTube. I mean, of course, you make a video for a Bond YouTube channel to pass on knowledge that you have, or something that you found out, or something that you think is important, so that a lot of people see it. But I never, ever, and we talked about that often, cared about whether it is 7 people or whether it is 1,000 people. I mean, right now I can see how many people watch this stream. There are 9 viewers in the stream. As long as I can make these 9 people happy on a Friday evening, I am happy. It doesn't need to be 900 or 9,000. That is not the focus of this. Yeah. And you are right. Speaking about the guest stars, a lot of it was by chance. For example, Luciana Paluzzi and Martin Beswick, they had no idea I would like to have them in my documentary on that evening in Oslo when we filmed. I asked them politely if they would have time to sit down with me. Luciana did. Martin Beswick, that when we recorded that outside of the cinema, she was leaving, and I took the last chance I had, and it was like 2:30 in the morning. And she was like that. She was there. Yeah. She was Martine Beswick, the actress. She answered my questions. She said one of the most important things ever. Bond girls don't need to be called Bond ladies or Bond women, because guess what? We were among the most attractive, beautiful, competent women at that time. And that's why we were hired. And sometimes the best things happen when they are unscripted. And the whole film is unscripted. Yeah, for most parts. I mean, in Kitzbühel, I had a written script. Yeah.
Yeah, and let's just spend a little bit of time now, since you very organically segued into this topic with the guest stars. You have just mentioned Martin Beswick, and I remember specifically back in that time, and I mean it's many years ago, but that's something I remember, how thrilled and pumped up you were after having talked to Luciana Paluzzi, because you said this in the documentary yourself. It's probably your favorite Bond girl. And I think, as far as I can remember, you said that the experience talking to her and having the chance to sit down with her and I mean, that's something great about this documentary. You hear her favorite Bond quote, a favorite Bond moment. I mean, where else do you get that? But maybe you can take us through again through that occasion, or through that experience for you sitting down with her. Perhaps even much rather, like I don't want to say occasionally. I just missed the word, but maybe you can just tell us the story how it was.
My pleasure. Cunning linguist.
Yeah, as always.
Yes, of course. It was really great. I mean, I was very nervous, but she makes you feel at ease automatically. And the way she took over the interview was very, very clever. She could sense that I was very nervous because there was, of course, a bit before the actual interview where I had to put the microphone on her very elaborate dress. And you can see it in the film. If you check the scene again, she had a very elaborate dress on with stones and everything. And I did not find a spot where to put the microphone. It was really, really difficult. And I put it on some part of chiffon that she had on. But I mean, you at that point you touched that actress, and I said, I'm sorry, Luciana, but I have to sort of get this microphone in there, and it's not the easiest microphone to pin on someone. I remember David Arnold, the interview. That was the first interview with one of the guest stars. I was even more nervous, and it ended in the most weird way you can imagine. Because I don't.
How so?
Oh, you really make me say that. Because I said something like, of all the concerts I've seen in London, your concert was by far the best, and I've seen 3. So that's of course no comparison. But I was so nervous. And I think after that he said, I think we're going to stop now. It's not going to get any better.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I still have, of course, I have the full interviews. I also have the full interview with Luciana. I mean, most of it is used. 95% of that I used. 5% are us getting into the interview, adjusting the light, and she's fixing her hair and things like that. But this happened on every interview. The camera was running most of the time, capturing things before and after. But yeah, it got easier over time. Once I realized, or once I told myself, these people might be famous, but they are exactly the same as you. They eat the soup with the same spoon, and they go to the same toilet doing the same thing I do on the toilet. So nobody is any better than us, you know?
That's right.
And,
Absolutely.
But
Absolutely.
as long as you approach everyone with a level of kindness, honesty, and honest intentions. I told them exactly what I wanted. I told them what it was for, and they all did it free of charge, you know?
Yeah.
And it was a fantastic experience speaking to each of them, sometimes in difficult circumstances, like the interview with Götz Otto we recorded in a hotel before he went on stage playing Queen Elizabeth's the King's Speech. He played Queen Elizabeth's father, who was a stammerer, and in the background there were 5 typical German middle-aged men playing a card game, and you can hear them in the background of the interview. There was no way to erase their voices. It was just there. So and in these moments you of course think, oh, God, why?
But you know, then again, I mean, it's a German actor. You are German. It takes place in Germany, and it's like I love this location. To you know, it's like a typical German pub, and it almost fits like to have these elder men in the background having a time. You know, I think it's great.
That's true. And then there are days like filming in Vaux-le-Vicomte, for example, with Béatrice Libert. We had arranged that. Weeks in advance, very, very careful planning, because she does not live in Paris. She had to come to Paris, I think, from somewhere in the direction of Nice. So we booked a train ticket for her to go to Paris. We met up in Paris, and we drove by train to Vaux-le-Vicomte. Then we moved to the castle, and it was over 30 degrees in the summer. I remember that. And with my friend Alain from Paris, he was way over 60 then. Beatrice was not the youngest anymore. I was, well, I don't care. But it was a strain for all of us in that heat. And she was such a perfect guest to have. We rented one of these golf carts, and I told her I can't because I don't have a driver's license. I cannot drive the cart, and they want to see a license. And she said, oh, it's no problem. I have a French driver's license. Absolutely no problem. I'll rent one. And we went off in this golf cart, went up to this statue where they filmed her scene. And she started with me in the golf cart. She started driving paths where you are not allowed to drive. And I told her, I said, Beatrice, I think that the sign over there said, you are not allowed to drive here. And she said, well, I'm French. I live here. I can do whatever I want. I said, oh, okay, okay. I'm just a passenger. Don't worry. She was so happy to receive this kind of friendliness from us, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
And she didn't know, but as a reward for this strenuous day, we took her for dinner on the Eiffel Tower, which is something you only do once in a lifetime.
Yeah.
And
Right.
it was so magical. You went up with an own escalator just for the restaurant. It has its own lift. And I remember we took a picture before we went up. And then you see, well, the city of light, the city of lovers from this exclusive place, which is almost dark. The restaurant is almost dark. It's not the same as In a View to a Kill. So that was a
Yeah, I was
set.
just right.
Um, exquisite food, and you look out of the window and you see Paris and you see the lovers on Eiffel Tower. I think we actually saw somebody proposing to his girlfriend. I think I saw that, and we toasted with a pink champagne, which they recommended to us because it's what the French drink in summer. They drink French champagne. Of course, they drink French champagne, pink champagne. So that's what I wanted to say.
Right.
And she was so overwhelmed by us inviting her to this dinner on the Eiffel Tower. I mean, that's a story you can tell for ages. And it cost as much as 3 months rent for my apartment. So
There you go.
this is a once in a lifetime thing. And yeah, filming with guest stars is nerve-wracking, but in the end, it's worth it. Always.
Right. Right. Just another comment from Tom Baker. He says it's still all magic to me. It is. We can share the same sentiment. And please, guys, feel free. Just as a reminder, if you want to ask questions, if you want to make comments, please do. We're absolutely here. We want to make this interactive. And Benjamin, I want to follow up this question. First of all, I want to say that we have met Beatrice Libert another time for another occasion, which was a film festival, and she was such a nice person. I remember her so fondly, as well as another French actress, which was also mentioned in the documentary. Unfortunately, she's not in there because our encounter was a couple of years later, again for a film festival taking place in Braunschweig, which was Corinne Cléry, which maybe the name is familiar to you. If not, she's the girl in Moonraker who flies the helicopter and later gets attacked by and killed by the dogs. And again, also such a nice and warm person as well. It was Götz Otto, who I cannot stress enough of how great a human being he is. And I mean, meanwhile, there's a lot of interviews with him because he always says yes, and he'll always willing to talk about Bond. And I think these encounters, they're so valuable, and I hope, or I would imagine that many or most of the encounters that you had were very pleasant. After all, right?
Yes, absolutely. All of them. All of them, except maybe Britt Ekland, who is not in the film. But that was tricky because I turned the camera on and I started asking my questions, and I was sort of uncomfortable because she kept asking a lot of questions, and if we started the interview yet, and I said, yeah, I mean, whenever you're ready. Well, and then I asked the first question, and she asked again if that is now an interview question, if the camera is on, otherwise there would be no point in answering the question. And I checked if the camera was on, and I didn't see the red flashing light that you normally have, because I think I turned it off because it distracts or it flashes in people's faces. So that's reflection. It's not really nice. Yep. And I hit the button again and I turned the camera off because it was already running. So I did not get this interview with Britt Ekland on film. I have the audio, but
I remember, yes. I remember the audio tape.
That was really bad because it was a good interview. It was really, really nice. And she's very, very professional in controlling how she appears in an interview. And I'm happy to accommodate all of the wishes of the guest stars. Although nobody really ever had one, because I set the interviews up as professional as I could. And I mean, when you look at the interview with Derek Lyons, which was filmed in London, this was such a magnificent location in Greenwich, you know, and you have a tower on the left side, a tower on the right side, and us walking in the middle, seeing how small we are in this world. But everything is symmetrical. This was a fantastic shot, and I saw it only afterwards when I came home how fantastic the shot was. When you are on location, yeah, you can film a lot of things and it looks nice on a tiny screen of the camera, but you only see the finished product at home. And this is really, really, really tricky. Real filmmakers, they have a screen. They have a screen attached to... I always wanted to buy that, but never got around to it. But yeah, I will.
Yeah. I remember towards the end of the production of A Bond for Life, we had a couple of discussions because, and maybe that's another interesting talking point, is that you know, you always said, I remember you always said to me, you know, now it's about enough. I cannot cram more guest stars and stuff into the documentary. But still, I would like to ask: are there people from the Bond world that you did not get that you would like to have gotten, or people that didn't want to participate, or maybe if you want,
I know where it's going. I know where it's going. Yes, yes, yes.
No.
Yeah.
I was not referring to George Lazenby. I was just talking in general. You know, were there people like, yeah, that you asked or that didn't take place? I remember we've talked, for instance, a couple of times about Robbie Coltrane, who now unfortunately has passed away. Meanwhile, who you also tried to get on board because, of course, GoldenEye and The World's Not Enough means a lot to us as a Bond movie, and it would have been cool to have it on board, but I knew that never happened. But maybe you have some other stories that you can tell us about this.
It's true that I asked a lot of people from the Bond world, professionals who worked on the films, to give me interviews. That's true, or to meet with me. Like, for example, when I was in Belfast and filmed the scenes with my best friend, because her father is Irish, so a lot of the location filming I did with people that I know or have a connection to my story, we did at places that are important to them, not to me, you know. So Belfast is a very important place for her, so we filmed there. And for my cousin, it is the place where she lives, Cuxhaven, which is the northern tip of Germany. So that was very important to me, to make them comfortable and to move away from Bond locations, you know. And in Belfast, at the same time when I was filming, Terry Bamber, who was a production assistant on Tomorrow Never Dies, The World Is Not Enough, up until Casino Royale. He was there giving a lecture at the university, and I wrote him before if he would have time for an interview, and sadly he didn't have time, so that did not happen. Sure, always. But it's like when you do a YouTube channel and you ask several people if they would have time for an interview. Sometimes you get a yes, sometimes you get a no. And the story with George Lazenby, I mean, we've never told it here on this channel. We've spoke about it in our podcast. At the opening of the Walk of Fame, where you can see scenes from in the film and where you can see George Lazenby arriving in the helicopter, I had an interview promised to me by Christoph Egger, the CEO of the Shilton Cableway. And when George Lazenby was downstairs in the Bond exhibition, Christoph Egger came to me and said, you know, when you go downstairs now, George Lazenby is down there with some of the Bond girls. Now would be the perfect time. And us two, we went down there and set up the camera, and he was explaining something to Silvana Henriquez and Catherine Schell. And when he came my way, I said, Mr. Lazenby, would you have a moment to speak to me about your time as Bond? And he sized me up. He looked at me from head to toe and turned around on the spot and said only for money he would do an interview. And I also just have the sound of that, because the camera wasn't running at that time to save battery, obviously, but the audio recorder kept going continuously. It can record 13 hours. There's no problem. The battery won't run out.
Right.
So this did not happen.
Yeah, and you also you had left out one tiny detail. After he has said that, he was already, you know, far back in the room, and you screamed not in a in a polite way, but you screamed after him. It's for UNICEF, and he didn't give an answer. He just disappeared.
Yeah.
So and I found that really upsetting. So there's a lot of great memories related to a Bond for Life production. So many great memories.
Yeah.
But that was something that really upset me, because that's not the way you treat people. That's not how you interact with people. And it's just plain rude. And I was so upset. And I remember the evening, for me at least. I mean, you sort of had a good you had a good way to deal with this, but for me the evening was over. I was just only upset. And I remember we had to drive back because you stayed at my place in that time where we did all the filming in Switzerland, and that night we had to drive back, which was a 3-hour drive, and we just talked about that. I was so angry and upset about this that that really ruined the whole thing for me that day.
Yeah, well, it happens. Let's not mention
Right.
it any further.
Yeah,
Let's go
exactly.
and show some behind the scenes footage. That's better.
All right.
Because
Just
otherwise people are going to bed.
just a little question about what you're drinking now. I think this
Yeah.
is Joao who asked this. What are you drinking now?
It's not
Champagne,
pink
rosé?
No, it's not. No. It's the cheapest I could find. Cheapest
Okay.
sparkling wine I could find. I think €1 and 79 cents or something.
All right.
It usually does the trick. I have some behind the scenes material for you, obviously. There is a playlist where the film is in on the Bond Bulletin channel. You will be able to see full on location features there. I think Austria is 52 minutes long or something. So you will see a lot of behind the scenes there, but I selected a few scenes and a few videos for you to enjoy. One of them, of course, and you remember that fondly, Yannick, is Versaska Dam, our trip down to the GoldenEye Dam. This was one of the most memorable days in filming A Bond for Life, because it was such a fantastic visit and such an impressive structure. So
Absolutely.
I want to show you a video of that day filming on Versaska Dam. Please enjoy.
Wow. Amazing.
Absolutely incredible.
First time for all of us.
Yeah.
Now I'm overtaking my two helpers on location. One of them is walking incredibly fast, just not to be featured on the material. Composer Yannick, both of us on location for the first time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really.
And
amazing.
perfect sunshine. The location is absolutely great. And to show you the stunning feature of this 220-meter high dam, we're going to take you over the side. Ready? Hey! Isn't that amazing? This is just a breathtaking view. And an incredible stunt they did. So it should be fine now. It is a breathtaking view, and of course, an incredible stunt that was filmed here so many years ago. It's not fluent. It's not fluent. One more to be
Okay.
safe.
Roger Moore. Being here for the first time is just absolutely amazing, because GoldenEye to me is not only my favorite movie. Wait a second. Okay. Now, being here for the first time on top of the Vasaska Dam is just absolutely incredible to me, because GoldenEye is not only my favorite James Bond movie, it's my favorite movie of all times, and just the opening shot and everything, and to see this site and to stand on top of it and to be able to be there where it was filmed is just absolutely incredible. Benjamin is a very devoted James Bond fan, the way I experience it, and he's just been visiting me in Switzerland. We did some location shoots, and he's a very funny guy, very cool to be around with, just a huge James Bond fan, and funny bloke.
Yeah, that was a fun day, wasn't it?
It was absolutely, it was stunning. It was For us who love GoldenEye so much, of course, visiting the infamous dam was one of the greatest experiences, and I still think back to it, every now and then.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I have just fond memories of that. And I remember exactly the moment in the car when you said, wow. And I saw that for the first time. At first, it doesn't feel at all impressive. But when you're on it and this is the place, it's magical. And once this moment happens, it's so fantastic.
Yeah, that's right. And it sort of creeps in on you. You maybe to give you sort of a background on how you access the actual dam is that you drive your car up sort of a windy road.
Yeah.
And then you have a lot of trees, and the dam is sort of slightly covered by the trees.
Yeah.
But you can already see it a little bit. And then
Yeah.
at one point you just go past the trees, and then you can pull on the side, and you can actually park there and go onto the dam. And as you could see in the making of video, there were quite a lot of people there. And later that day, they have also opened a rig that goes over the dam that allows you to bungee jump, which no, we did not do.
No. But I think it was Easter Sunday, wasn't it? When we filmed.
Right.
Easter
exactly,
Sunday or Easter
exactly.
Monday, something like that. And of course it was closed. And I thought, okay, it's closed because it's Easter. And right when we left, 10 minutes before we left, they opened this little shop, and that man was arranging the bungee rope.
Yeah.
And I told you that before. I thought, would it not be a great shot, the overhead shot, and then people in the cinema where it all is a lot bigger? And I mean, you have to remember, at the world premiere, we showed this film in a cinema with a really big screen.
Right.
I thought, what will be going through people's minds? He's not going to do that. He's not going to jump off the dam. And what if I had? It would have shown to me and to others that I am prepared to face my fears. But that would have been a different message to transport. Not only different, but also difficult. I have a fear of doing that. And I did a lot of things. I jumped out of an airplane with a parachute, which I hated. It was rubbish. But would it have done the film any good? Probably not.
No. And I mean, you already have, like you said, the overhead shot, which by the way, made me sweat bullets.
Yes.
I remember, because you had this, well, let's say how it is, this sort of flimsy tripod. And I remember you said, you know what, I want to take this. And you see it in the documentary. You see the camera in front of you, and then you actually go over the dam with it. And the camera was really hanging over the dam. And I thought, well, Benjamin, sorry, put this out there, doesn't have a lot of money. And what if this camera falls down? It falls off this flimsy sort of a tripod, and the whole project is gone. And like you said before, it was a lot of fun, but still there was quite a schedule, because you had to do the whole the intro segments. You had to film everything, and it was also, and then we did a lot of takes trying to run across the dam, like in the movie, sort of holding the camera Steadicam handheld style, which was not in the movie. You could probably imagine why.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that was quite a show.
Yeah, I remember how tense you were with that, and we tried it several times. And you're right. Or if there would have been an accident with a camera falling down this 220-meter high dam, the project would have been killed. Yeah. Absolutely.
Right. And I mean, the pictures in the cinema, like you said before, like on the massive screen, it really shakes you.
Yeah.
It's an uneasy watch to go to see the camera go on over top, Yeah. And another thing that maybe you can share is that when you see in the movie when James Bond dives down and he actually lands on this platform, I think you even had scheduled or had talked with the proprietors of the dam to go down there, right?
That's true. Yeah. I spoke with Versaska SA, which is the company operating the dam, and they said it's no problem to allow you to go inside the dam and film at this little thing where Bond arrives and where he lasers open the hatch. There is nothing down there. There are a few control consoles and things like that, which they maintain regularly. So they would have probably taken us inside with the guy who checks these consoles. But we could never. First of all, it was Easter when we planned to film, and of course on Easter their people don't work. So
it's a very Catholic country.
Yeah, that in the end was the problem. But still, there is still the possibility to go there at some point. I can dig out this email conversations I had and send it back to them and say, hey, if the offer still stands, let's do it for a feature of the Bonn Bulletin. Why not?
Right, exactly. And, staying on topic of Switzerland, of course, there were quite a few Easter eggs that just passed by, like in form of footage. But there were quite a couple of things. Maybe avid Bond fans spotted it. But for instance, the opening shots of the whole Switzerland segment was, of course, Bern. It was the place where the actual bears are. So the bears. The name givers of the city, of course, harkening back to On Her Majesty's Secret Service, and the shot when we drove through the countryside with the silver Jeep, which again I have to mention here, I miss very much. That was our great companion.
Yeah, it was.
And there was the shot with the Jeep. It's a very simple shot that is over in a couple of seconds. But you wanted me to drive the Jeep over the camera. Maybe you can tell that story.
Yeah, it was an idea of me to go to this place called, it's funny name, Heiligenschwendi, where they filmed the barn scene of Bond and Tracy, and we passed by that building, but I was too scared to ask and just go onto private property if we could film there. So we just used the road that goes to this farmhouse, which is an actual farm. And I mean, they're, if you're ever there, they are happy if you approach them, and as long as you're not 500 people. They love this part of history being featured in a Bond film. But yeah. Right. And then I thought, okay, what do we do on this road? Again, as I said in the beginning, I had the scene in my head, the introduction to Switzerland, and I asked you to drive over the camera, placing the camera on the street. The camera is about, I don't know, that in height, easy to fit under every car. And you were so frightened to do that, and I said, no, it's okay, just do it. And we did it in one take, and you ran over the camera. It was perfectly fine. I picked up the camera, and after we filmed everything, I went home and I saw the footage, and oh God, he slowed down. Okay.
Yes, right.
As if that would do any good. Because he would just have driven over the camera, destroyed it very slowly. So, so I actually sped up the footage. I played around with the speed a bit until I liked it, which is always tricky because your footage can become corrupted. It can look weird and artificial. Right. But it looked actually rather nice. With modern technology, you can do a lot. There's a frame interpolation and things like that, and it worked quite nicely, and it's a great shot. I love that shot. It's fantastic. Yeah.
And of course, on our way, we've collected as much as we could, like we talked about Wertzaska. We always make fun about the Fokapass, who was heavily featured in Goldfinger. But every time, I mean, ever since we know each other, we have been up there maybe 3 or 4 times, and every time there was like massive fog there, and you could see nothing. You could barely see the hand in front of your face. And so you have never actually experienced the Fokapass like in the movie. But there was Lauterbrunnen as well, where in the movie On Her Majesty's Secret Service, of course, Bond goes to phone and is then being shot at. All the scenes where he gets off the train and everything, and then of course the Schildhorn. Yeah. So my question is, of all of these locations, is like something that sticks out to you the most now in retrospective?
Well, Piz Gloria, obviously. Obviously, I mean, we had so much fun on that day on Piz Gloria. I think we were up on the mountain for 7 hours.
Right.
We went early in the morning. We had breakfast there. I remember because they have this early bird breakfast thing. And we did that. and the CEO of the Shilton Cableway was there. Christoph Egger, Markus Hartmann, president of the Swiss Bond Club, was there. All the people we needed, you know. And it was a very hot day. The sun was really pushing down, you know. I had a sunburn when we were done in my neck, and my lips were completely effed up. But we spent a lot of time in the Bond World exhibition, which is not called Bond World anymore. It's now Spy World, but it is still there. So for everybody who wants to visit, it is still there, and it still tells the story of the filming on Her Majesty's Secret Service. But this day was so fun. And I mean, we shot, I think, 4.5 hours of material. Half of that you don't even see in the film. It takes so much time to set up cameras, to evade tourists with skiing boots that are very loud. I mean, you hear it in the film, in the interview with Christoph Egger. There are people with skiing boots walking right through the interview. Thank God they didn't walk through the shot, because there is this digital table. But, this scene with the telephone, you remember that?
Absolutely, yeah.
I'll show you. Let's take our viewers to Piz Gloria and how the filming went. Here is our filming day at Piz Gloria. Enjoy.
You're now both in the picture.
Okay, both.
Are you going to walk towards each other?
Yeah.
Okay, then it works. But you're both in the picture now.
Yeah. I'm going to walk towards the middle, shake hands. Okay. I introduce you. Oh, don't scream too loud. I always it's too loud. And then we just make it up as we go along. I mean, you're a professional. I'm just asking the questions.
But your head is out of the picture.
Yeah.
Can you recognize the building?
Like that?
Yeah. And a bit tilt upwards. Yeah, that's great. Light a bit more, because there is no reflection, I think. Yeah, that's great, that's great. Now I'm going really fast.
Is it realistic?
Probably not.
Hey, we should do an over shoulder. Maybe we'll look a little bit like we would actually fly.
Yeah. Well, let's try the helicopter ride then, yeah? Just press engine start. And you can select your language, so that should work. And you actually steer the whole helicopter yourself. My helicopter. Fuck it. Steer the helicopter yourself. You hear that? Up into the Alps. Right, so.
Can you manage?
It's the fucking cord. Yeah, it's me, Donald. No, it's me, Evan, so, sorry. Understood, sir. Well, after receiving your mission orders... yeah, well... I think I was going to recall button. Understood, sir. After receiving your mission details from M via the right telephone here.
As we say, I'm the mistress.
Because that looks rubbish. I did it so often. It's like a mistake that repeats itself, because you can see me chewing gum all the time.
Okay.
Understood, sir.
Why does the system receiving weeks to vote?
Use the button back.
Okay, go for it.
Jane, where have you been?
M! I did it! Yeah, it was great! Yes, it was a lot of fun! Yeah! Yeah, let's do that! Yeah! Yeah, barbecue is probably a bit American. But right. Yes. Yes. Right, yeah. I'm gonna be careful. Thank you, love you.
What is that?
No, probably not. But it's nice silhouettes here. Look at that. Yeah. It's well done. We are very lucky to be here in perfect weather. Makes the Alps look really good. It's breathtaking. And here's the rest of the crew, yes. And yeah, they're engaging in heavy conversation. We're taking sort of a break because we're almost done filming. I just have to do some angles here, some establishing shots, whatever. And you never guess who I just met. Good old George. Yeah. Standing here in the perfect sunshine. Wonderful. Ah, what a great day filming A Bond for Life!
Wasn't that a fun day?
Yeah, it was. So you can see it was always great fun being on the road with Benjamin doing these things, and I just want to quickly pick up a couple of comments that have been written in the meanwhile. There was the question why the Bond references had to be removed on the Shilton. I cannot talk about it in great detail because I don't know enough about it. But of course, it comes down to copyright issues and stuff like that, and intellectual property and all of that, which has gotten like progressively worse over the last couple of years. And then we also, bloopers are always fun, as you can see that there's a lot of that material around.
That's what I want to pick up on. Bloopers are always fun. Because I've got a blooper reel prepared for you, obviously.
Okay, yes.
So many things went wrong. First of all, when you're me. That is the first problem you have during filming when you do it with me. Because I tend to forget lines. Even when I do videos for this channel here, an introduction like the one you had before the film, an introduction to the film, that was recorded 17 times because I don't do scripts. I make them up as I go along and I speak them in front of the camera as long as the text is perfect, and then I just try to match the text I had before, but you have to remember it, obviously. That's how the filming of A Bond for Life went most of the time, on location. And there was a particular instance I remember in Berlin. And some of you recognize the location from the get-go, the motorway exit in Berlin. And we went there on a weekend and recorded these lines, the introduction to the location segment. And I said one thing wrong in the narration. I don't remember what it was. I have to look it up. And I looked at it at home and I thought, there is no way I can cut it. There is no way I can lip sync it. And then I asked my friend, the daughter of my former boss, who you also saw in the film. We're great friends. And I said, do you want to go back to Berlin? Sort of like next week again? And she was like, why? We just been there. We walked 2.5 kilometers just to reach that motorway exit, and people were looking at us funny. And the first time, I think even horses came by, which looked great, but didn't do the film any good. And she said, yeah, let's do it. And I had to wear the same clothes as in the first one, because I thought I could use something from the first visit to Berlin and then merge it with the second, which didn't work. So, right. And then but I was under so much pressure to say the right thing that I forgot the other lines, and we already were there for half an hour and I had said so many wrong things, and it's part of the blooper reel. You will like it. Sometimes you step in front of the camera and everything is gone. And you're just like, okay. Something happened before that, something that was funny, and or you get into a laughing fit, and then it doesn't work until you find yourself again and you find your inner zen. And yeah, of course, every film production has outtakes. So here, for your viewing pleasure, are ours in full glory. Outtakes of A Bond for Life. Here we go.
Right. The good thing... No, it's not a good thing. It's far away from a good thing.
A 220-meter high... Oh, for f***'s sake. That was so brilliant. And it was filmed right here, at the motorway exit in Hüttenweg. Don't lean on the camera. It's gonna move. Now I can do it again. You silly fool. Go over there and film. The first connection between Ian Fleming and myself can actually be found in this old wooden building, which is old. Oh, again. The world of Bond fans is an exciting place to be, and I forgot my text. Take 159. Oh shit. Oh. One more time. One more time. Fleming's German improved rapidly. Oh, Snow.
Ja, genau. Yeah, all right, stop. Yeah, all right, stop. So. Nervig. Warte kurz.
Miep, miep.
It's Blint. Benjamin Blint.
Off.
So amazing, and this is like Mecca here for, you know, what Mecca is for religious people. This is like...
Oh, no religious people. No religious people, please. No. Okay. Don't do religious people.
Praise the Lord, hallelujah. A few minutes I'm a saint too, because I'm going to shoot myself.
How do you see me?
Okay.
Yeah, this is...
I see you behind the camera.
Ja, das kommt der Boden, ja, ne?
1, 2, 3, klack.
Don't touch the camera. I told you before, don't touch the camera.
1, 2, 3.
Step away from the camera, not towards the camera. Wide variety. How's your friend, Monty?
What friend, Monty? Braunschweig is a very old city, and I like it very much.
Where in 1969, on Her Majesty's Secret Service with George Lazenby as... Shit. Again, take 3. Favorite Bond girls, take 200,015.65. Ooh. And last but not least, the O2 Arena. Bollocks. Now, it is called... Oh, f*** it. That was good. I'll have to do it again. And I'm here to speak one of my... F*** it. James Bond meets Honey Rider, which is of course played by Swiss-German actress Ursula Andress.
Not Swiss-German.
Not Swiss-German?
No, I'm German. I was born in Berlin.
No, Ursula Andress. I was talking about Ursula Andress. I'll take... No. Okay, we have to do it again. Champagne left?
No, not.
Outtakes are still the best. Outtakes are the best. It's what I look for in every film. Bonus material, outtakes, and it has to be.
Right.
Yeah, it really.
And I also wanted to say, I already wanted to state it before, but this is also in loving memory of Nikki van der Zyl, of course.
Absolutely. Yeah, she passed away
Which
a couple of years ago.
Yeah, exactly. And it came across in the documentary that the both of you had a very special relationship.
Yes, we did. Yeah. Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
She was a lovely, lovely human being. So glad to share her part of the story, and she never got recognized for what she did. She was never in any end credits of any of the Bond films. She wrote a fabulous book called For Your Ears Only, because of course she was a voice actress, you know. And I met her on many occasions, and especially her visit here to film these scenes and recreate these scenes of Doctor No. Of course, her voice aged, yeah, but it was such a fantastic afternoon showing her through the city where I live in. Same that I did with Caroline Munro and Martine Beswick. They were also happy to see these places and explore them when they have a guide. And Nikki van der Zyl was a very, very warm person who had such an impact on the Bond franchise, and the voices that she delivered really made these films sound the way they sound. And I mean,
exactly,
the scenes you see in the documentary, there are one or two snapshots of her and Gert Frobe and Goldfinger, where he played Auric Goldfinger. She taught him English on the set of Goldfinger, and he spoke perfect English at the end of filming, but his voice was still also revoiced by another actor, you know, because of course they filmed the scenes in random order, and some of the scenes where he could not speak perfect English were filmed at the beginning, and some of them were shot later. So they made the decision to have him revoiced by Michael Collins, who could match Gert Frobe's voice exactly, but still, she had all these memories and was happy to share them.
And what I found very impressive, and what I regret a little bit, is that when you actually put in the pictures of her, the black and white pictures from when she was quite young, I sort of regret the fact that she never got around doing the role of a Bond girl, because when I saw those pictures of her when she was young, she had the look of these Bond girls. So it was a little,
yeah.
you know.
And there is this story that I think it was Harry Saltzman. I'm not exactly sure if it was Saltzman or if it was Broccoli, who said, I'm really sorry, you're good as a voice actress, but as an actress on film, you wouldn't exactly stop the traffic. And Sean Connery took her aside and said, you know, I would stop traffic any time for you. And
how sweet.
That was, a missed opportunity, sure. But
absolutely,
she has a legacy, and she should be remembered for that. And it's all the more important that this was banned on film. Yeah,
right,
definitely.
Right, absolutely.
And
there's another question, Benjamin, that came up that I would like to forward to you, was by Joao, and we saw it in a couple of shots now in the documentary as well as behind the scenes pictures. Was the Red Lotus? Maybe you could tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, the Red Lotus belongs to a good friend of mine from the south of Germany. He has actually two Lotus cars. He's got the white one, Wet Nelly, and he's got a red one. And he also showcased the red car in Lauterbrunnen at the Piz Gloria event, 50 years of Honor Majesty's Secret Service. He bought the chassis, which was very rundown, and he put it together with original parts and made it look like the car from For Your Eyes Only. And he actually bought skis, the same skis that Bond has in For Your Eyes Only, to mount them on the back. It's all custom made. He put a lot of effort, a lot of time, and a lot of money into that car, and it was a looker. We filmed that here where I live, and just going through the street, and I remember we went to a gas station because he needed gas, and every single person on the street was looking at this car, because you don't often see Lotus cars on the street anymore. They are vintage cars, and usually during winter months he keeps them in the garage, but in the summer where we filmed, he gets them out. He's going to locations with it. He's going to fan meetings with it. And we had such a blast with that car. We filmed a lot more. We filmed the car on a stretch of road in the countryside where you can go really fast. But of course, there are always other cars in front of you. So we never, ever got a shot with just the Lotus, which I wanted. And if I don't get the shot that I want, well, that's why there is not a shot in that. And the car arriving in front of the camera at the very first scene of the film was shot, I think, half a year after I filmed the rest that comes after it. So that's how a filmmaker's mind has to work. You need to know what you already filmed and what you can put in front of it and after it. And it worked. I liked it. It looks really, really great. And Jochen just says he's seen photos of John Moreno on it. That's true. The car was also in Cortina at an event of the James Bond Club Germany together with the James Bond Club Switzerland, where John Moreno was a star guest. And of course, they parked, I wasn't there myself, but they parked the Lotus in front of the ice rink and recreated that scene of John Moreno who died in that car in the film. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
Fantastic collector of Bond memorabilia, and of course these two cars. Great guy.
And admirable, because some people of you, maybe some of you are interested in cars, because English cars is, first of all, it's a vintage car, and second of all, I mean, English cars are notoriously to break down. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and there were instances much later, after filming was finished, after the world premiere was, when I ended up in an Aston Martin DB5, an original 1964 Aston Martin DB5, together with John Glenn. So I would have loved to have these scenes for my documentary, but of course the film was already finished. But it proves that pretty much you can make a film any day in your life when you're in the Bond world, because there's always something happening, something extraordinary that you never saw before, but these things can happen.
Right. And on the subject of John Glenn, I mean, we've talked about this before, but on another channel, another podcast. Maybe you could tell the story, because the whole connection between A Bond for Life and John Glenn is quite a special one as well. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about that as well.
Yeah. I just quickly want to answer that question from Always Say Yes to Adventure. Did your friend let you drive the Lotus? No, he didn't, because I don't have a license. I never had a license, and no, you wouldn't. Even if I said I could do it for 500 meters, no, you wouldn't. Not with that car. We
saw on the fan film how that would unwind.
I nearly ran it into the wall. Yeah, at two times. Yeah. No, don't give me any expensive cars, please. No. John Glenn. Yes, John Glenn was here as a guest of a film festival where I was the creative director. And I suggested him as a guest because, of course, he has a long line of filmmaking going far back beyond Bond, you know. He worked on The Wild Geese as well, with a very, very, very tricky scene to film in The Wild Geese, with people jumping out of a plane. He was responsible for filming that scene, a brilliant scene. And we invited him, and at this festival, we showed my film exclusively to him, because he had sort of an afternoon off before an evening event, and we did it in a restaurant where I know the owner, and there is a beamer and a screen, and I asked if he wanted to see it, and of course, a filmmaker, he said yes, and we had lunch at the same time, and he watched the film, and I remember, and I know you find that funny, when he saw this Octopussy scene with Bond going over the motorway, and in my film there is music that you composed, and John Glenn turned to his wife and whispered something in her ear, and she shook her head, and then he asked me after the film, he said, you know, that scene in Octopussy, for the life of me, I can't remember if that had music, but in your film it has music. Can you elaborate on that? And I said, no, John, it did not have music in Octopussy. My friend composed it, and he said, well, he's a bloody good composer then. I mean, it sounded like John did that. And I said, wow. That's a knighthood for you right there.
Absolutely, and it stuck to me till this day. It's one of those great things,
And we had so much fun with John Glenn and his wife. Such lovely people, so down to earth, so happy to share memories and stories from the Bond film. And once he starts, he doesn't finish, and you don't want him to finish, because he is such a fantastic storyteller. One of the greatest storytellers about film that I've ever heard and that I've ever been in company with.
That's right.
And this was fantastic.
And I mean,
he had criticism about my film, though. I have to be fair. He said, your film has too many endings. You think the film is finished, and then there is a blend into black, a fade into black, and then there is another scene, and it fades, and then there is another scene. So he's right in that, but of course, I would not say he's wrong, because he's the filmmaker. I'm not. I'm just a hobby filmmaker. Yeah? But his input is very important. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And that's the point, you know, even though despite the fact what he has done, you have mentioned, of course, the Bond films, the Wild Geese, and all these big productions. But in a way, he doesn't see himself above other people. And that speaks volumes for him. And I just wanted to say that because even though it's many, many years ago, and I mean, a lot has happened since then, but I still vividly remember how the dinner we had with them, and we had the great honor of being able to having dinner with them a couple of times. But I remember that one specific time. I remember there was a snowstorm and there was an avalanche here where I live, and we were, of course, both of us were in Braunschweig at that time, and that was like one of the conversation points. It's really, if you have a dinner with John Glenn and his wife, it's really, you know, it's every now and then, of course, because you're a Bond fan, you ask Bond things. But other than that, it's just random chat. And he's, you know, he asked and he's interested. And when I was watching on my on my cell phone the news, there was an avalanche here that actually I think injured a couple of people. He was asking, where exactly do you live, and what has happened, and tell me more. And all the, you know, it's just the conversations that you have like with a friend or with someone you meet. It's not this kind of acted kind of thing. It's really natural, organic, a natural organic experience that you have with them. And that, again, it's a great thing.
And it's the same with stars from the Bond world and fans that you meet. Very often you speak like 10 minutes about Bond, and then you start changing the subject into what you're doing in your daily life, how you are, things that interest you and that interest the other person. So like friends who haven't seen each other in a long time. And that's what I cherish about the Bond community. It's not always about Bond. I mean, at some point you have talked about everything. You have touched every subject. And it's also nice for the famous people behind the Bond films to talk about something else for a change.
Right.
They welcome that. And for me, with every guest star, I mean, the interview with Götz Otto, for example, is a good example, because we filmed a double interview. I did one for my YouTube channel where it was 50% Bond and 50% his theater work. Because it was not for my channel, it was for the Bond Club Germany channel. Because you want to touch the subject of what these people have done apart from Bond. Because Bond is a tiny fraction of what they did in their career. They've done many other things. Caroline Munro, the same. She's did many Hammer films, for example, Captain Kronos and all these things. Films that have their own cult following. It's not always just about Bond. That's a very, very important part.
Exactly. And I would, if you would indulge me for a second, I would like to tell a little story about Götz Otto as well. I want to go into the full story because I think I've told this a couple of times, but it just ties in nicely with what you're just saying, is that he actually, before he came to Germany, he did the tour in Switzerland with his King's Speech theater production. And by complete chance, I heard that he was actually playing in a town where I live, which was a very small town. And then I got in touch with the director of the theater and asked him, did I just hear a radio commercial that actually Götz Otto will be in this play? And he said, yeah, possibly. And he had no idea that he was Harry Stamper from Bond. And then we just tried to make it work that I could do an interview with Götz Otto as well. And just to skip the boring parts, we've arranged on a Saturday, it was, where I had the early shift at the radio. We've arranged at about, he told me, we had email contact, and he sent me, you know what, you can come a half an hour before the show will start. We'll do a quick interview. That's no problem. And then at 12, I went back home from the early shift at the radio to take a nap and to prepare my things, because I wanted my Tomorrow Never Dies DVD ready to be signed by him. And then all of a sudden, when I was walking home, the phone call came from a secretariat who told me, there's a tall German guy here waiting for you. And I was like, what? And it can only be one person. I ran back home first to pick my DVD, and then I ran back to the radio, and there he was. So not only did he take the time, and I was asking him, what are you doing here already? And he said, well, he heard that I was a big Bond fan, and he would love to meet and to talk a bit. And we spent about 3 to 4 hours together. And we did the interview first. We talked about Lee Tamahori, of course, from Die Another Day, because it was the time when he was being imprisoned. We talked about Bond. We did the interview. He signed the DVD with the quote, oh, pleasant death. And then he asked me, and I was sort of, I didn't want to impose. I said to him, okay, so thank you very much for coming by. He said, where are you going? I mean, and we went outside, and then I lit a cigarette, and he told me, I haven't smoked in a while. Can I have one too? I would just be in the mood for it. And then we took a stroll through the small town where I used to live. And he asked me, well, what are exciting sights to see here? And I said, well, there's hardly anything. And then he said, you know what, it doesn't matter. Let's just go on a stroll. We went on a stroll for about an hour. And like you mentioned before, we just talked about mundane things like football, like everyday life, like this and that. And you forgot that who he was, and that he was this actor who played these great roles. Of course, he drew a lot of attention to him, because the Swiss are known to be very discreet when it comes to VIPs. Roger Moore lived very nearby, partially in his chalet in Montana, and Phil Collins and all these people who pick Switzerland as their destination, because they're being left alone. Tina Turner as well, and so on, who unfortunately died as well. But just, the sheer size of this man and the way he looks, it just drew a lot of attention to him. But other than that, it was very organic. It was a great guy, and it was just a fantastic experience. So that's why I want to share this.
I second that. Yeah, if you have a chance to meet Götz Otto, take up on it. Do it. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Gareth is asking, he missed the stream, but how long is left? Well, you could watch it at your own pleasure if you want. It's on the channel, there for all time. So whenever you want. We spoke about the music before. We spoke about the music in the Octopussy scene, which wasn't there in the original film, but you composed it, of course, for my film, which surprised John Glenn, which shows what good of a composer you are. And
thank you.
Obviously. And touching on that,
it was my shitty rendition of trying to be like John Barry, but okay, at least it worked.
it worked brilliantly, and I found this clip of us together coming up with the gun barrel music at the very beginning of my film, which I think is a very, very important part. The first thing you see in a film is the gun barrel in a Bond film, and it sort of draws you in, and the music has to be right. And my gun barrel is totally different, first of all, because I have to go a little bit back. In the beginning, we had a different gun barrel idea, which was to be made by Tom Waldeck, a great visual creator of little Bond fan clips and stuff and re-edits. I cherish and love his work. And it was supposed to go through my eye, sort of a flying gun barrel through my eye, because that's what you see on the poster. You see a gun barrel in my eye when you look really closely. And this could actually not be realized in time for me where I wanted to have the gun barrel. And when we were filming in Switzerland, in the evening, we came up with the gun barrel sound that we wanted to have for this film. And it had to be something different. Because copying the Bond theme is one thing. You will have lawyers on your back pretty much instantly. So that was not an option. So what you did was you played a certain thing on your guitar, and after that I quizzed you on it, and for the first 10 minutes you couldn't reproduce it until we got to that point, and I said, and suddenly you played it, and you said, oh, I said, that's the one. That is the one. I want this.
Yeah.
This is what I want. And this is what you hear in the film, in the final film. And I want to play you exactly that clip because it is really nice and shows you the level of dedication that Yannick has to and his own ideas to make this sound fit to my imagination, what I wanted to have, which is very, 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 very tricky for a filmmaker to be happy with what the composer does. Usually there are things to correct here and things to correct there, and say, oh, no, I don't like that sound, I don't like that. What I found in working with Yannick is that most of the time I took the tracks exactly as they were. There was no correction needed. Am I right? How often?
That is right.
How often did I say change something, change this? It's not right. Not often.
No, I think I can't even remember if you said it even once. But I have to give credit back to you because, you know, you can only make, and I found this because now looking back at it with 8 years of experience between now and back when we did A Bond for Life, when the source material is good and gives you inspiration, inspires you, and actually makes you come up with ideas. The source material is everything, especially when you're talking about film productions. I mean, I've had my share of, you know, like productions that were mediocre, lackluster, and then you find it really difficult to have an emotional response because music in the end is nothing else but an emotional response to what you see put into notes and put into sounds and put into that. And if you have that emotional response, the music writes itself. And now, having watched the movie again after 8 years, I have to say I heard a couple of things in there that surprised myself. First of all, I have to admit I didn't remember even that we made a title song. I forgot about that completely. To my shame, I have to admit. And but the other things that I heard that were like how did that idea come about? And that's the fascinating thing about writing music and writing film music especially is there's always capturing the moment and what you felt in that moment and how you translated it. I think I couldn't reproduce any of it, but it was that moment that was right. It was the material that was so inspiring and great and thrilling that, like I said, the music just wrote itself basically. So the props go back to you essentially.
Absolutely. So without any further ado, here we go. Making the gun barrel music, Yannick and me, as it was created. Enjoy.
That's the one. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's just, it's basically the same. I just thought, you know, in the GoldenEye rescore, I used this one and I liked it pretty much because it's some sort of, it has a tone, it has a note in there, but it also has that driving rhythm.
Yeah.
And as soon as it starts to pick up speed and everything starts to develop, and you can also go a little bit higher, then it's even more prominent.
Yeah. So from the storyboard from the gun barrel, how long can you drag that first one on? Because you have the fade in of Dedicated to Barbara Broccoli, Michael Wilson. But before that you have the 3-second black screen. So play it again. So you have nothing.
Yes.
Now comes the text. Dedicated to Barbara Broccoli, Michael Wilson. And now come the dots. And then they start to move. And then in the middle. And then,
Yeah. That's just a bit.
It needs to keep the tension Until that point, and it's not long.
Yes, there's to blend seamlessly.
Yeah.
But that will not be a problem. And especially then, as the two dots connect to the gun barrel, then of course it's going to be all orchestral.
Yeah.
There's a lot of orchestra going to kick in, as brass, strings, and all that.
Yeah.
That's going to be needed.
Okay. Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. No, it's good. It's perfect. I like that. It's really good.
Cool.
Thank you.
When you have the gun barrel, the whole gun barrel sequence, I timed it. It's almost like I think 24, 27 seconds until it really blends into the scene of the movie. But of course, then you have time to build up the music with all the white dots and that stuff.
Yeah.
And in this case, those chances are all gone because you literally start with the James Bond theme as the gun barrel is already there. It has to be very brief. Yeah, it has to be.
But I don't want to make it I want to make it my thing. So copying the musical theme is not so much an option. I mean, it's only 60 to 80% an option because it's so recognizable. But this is the first thing very important people will see, and we'll think, oh, using the Bond theme. Oh yeah, good idea, lawyer. What just came to me was, can you maybe do something completely different with the ending of the GoldenEye main title sequence? Because it flies through a gun barrel and opens with the car. Da 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 da. Can you do something with that?
Ah.
Because that from the time,
yes,
it's enough and it works for a fly-through.
Yeah. So it explodes and that. And what car? What? Are you gonna shoot the scene in a car then? Or?
No. In GoldenEye.
Oh, as a reference. Yes.
That's when the song, Tina Turner song ends,
yes,
and it flies through the rifling of the gun and opens with a DB5.
Yes, and which scene will be right after this fly-through?
No.
You don't know that yet?
Haven't decided yet. No.
Okay.
But that's basically unimportant. It can be a still scene. It can be it will not be something terribly moving. I think it will be what I film in the weekend. So landscape scenes basically.
Okay.
Because I have to get to that, work up to that point where I sold my first Bond film, and there's a bit of narration involved. So, but works anyway. Just have a gentle fade. Out of the music.
Dun, dun, dun.
It gives people time to breathe.
Or just some da 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 da
da.
Something like that, and then silence. Yes.
Because I have not talked yet about seeing the first Bond film. I have to start with a little bit of family history, but we'll keep that very short. And that's what I film at the weekend. And I think that will be the scene where it opens. Landscape.
Okay.
I had in mind some forest animals. If I get up really early, I might catch some. Otherwise, I use stock footage or something. And maybe a bit of mist, because it's still cold in the south of Germany, and I don't know. Because it completes the mystery of the opening title sequence. And everybody says, what, deer? In the grass? Okay, that's going to be a funny film. But it's something completely different. But I think it's good to have a lot of changes in there, because from the first moment it tells people there will be a lot of changes. And this sort of represents the changes that I went through all my life. And that is, I think it's a good reference, that not everybody will catch at first glimpse.
Oh yes.
So.
That's pretty nailed down, so to speak. That's cool, I like that.
The creation in progress,
Right, exactly.
I love that clip, really.
It's a great throwback, and I mean, also, you can see why it was so easy to write the score, because the instructions were. I mean, this was one conversations that we only had about the gun barrel and what comes before and after it. But when you have such clear instructions and a vision of something, then it's just it's easy breezy. I find it the most difficult sometimes when people go out, they send you something, they go like, well, do what you feel like is right. Well, where are you going to take it from there? And then you sent like 4 to 5 drafts, and they always go, it's not that. You say, what the hell do you want, And we've just received. And by the way, Jochen has mentioned before that he just, I think, I can't remember, dug up a copy of a signed soundtrack, because I did that back then. I remember. I think did about 10 or 15 physical copies of the soundtrack, which I all did myself, like a really shitty work,
Well, who
like
cares?
burnt the CD at home, and then I cut out the covers myself, and it was all wonky and not, proportionate and stuff. But yeah, it was a product of its time, and I actually I don't even have a physical copy myself at home anymore.
I
So
do. I have one.
yeah. You have one?
Yes, I
Okay.
can
Okay.
sell
Very
it to you for like £5,000 or something.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these are also the Blu-rays. I mean, I did the same as you did for my friends that you see at the beginning of the film, my old classmates. We had a class reunion in 2018. That was 2 years after the film premiered, and nobody of them could make it to the premiere. So they hadn't seen the film, and I burned, I think, 6 Blu-rays, and I took it with me to this class reunion and gave it to them. So these are the only physical Blu-rays that existed at that time. And I remember I went to this Bond in Motion event with David Arnold. I think that was in 2019. I don't remember exactly when it was, but Barbara Broccoli was there, and I had the Blu-ray in my hotel room because I had made it my mission to get to Eon House in Piccadilly in London and to give them this damn Blu-ray of my film, because it is dedicated to Barbara Broccoli and Michael Wilson. So I wanted them to have it. And I met her on that evening, and I told her on the red carpet of the Spectre premiere that I was making that film, which I was making at that time. And I said, when it is finished, I will bring it to Eon House. And she said, super. I have that on camera. She said that. Super. And on that evening with David Arnold in Bond in Motion, I met her again, and I said, the film is in my hotel room. I can bring it to Eon House tomorrow before I go on the plane to go back to Germany. And she was so nice. She got her assistant and said, would you please make an appointment with Mr. Lind for tomorrow, like 10:30 in the morning, so that he can bring his film to Eon House. And she talked to me, and she said, well, it's no problem. You can come around 10-ish. And I did. I got up early in the morning, had a good breakfast so I don't faint. And I rang that one bell, Eon Productions, and this golden or brass bell thing that they have, and the door actually opened for me. For, I think, the first Bond fan who went into Eon House. I'm not sure. I don't know if anybody else did. There is nothing fantastic to see there. It's boring. It's just a hallway with a reception desk and some office space there, some cartons standing around. There's no Bond posters or nothing romantic that you would expect. And I just handed the same assistant from the evening before. I handed her my film, and with a long letter dedicated to Barbara Broccoli and Michael Wilson, explaining the making of the film, the same that I tell to you now. And well, I never heard from them, but still, that was my mission, and I succeeded.
Right,
and that was an important thing for me.
Absolutely, absolutely. Let me just quickly pick up on a couple of the last comments. Gareth Smith wrote, "We've been expecting you," right? That's the fitting quote for this one. It's cool you had the chance to meet them and that you actually could come full circle and give them the DVD actually. And then we have a comment by Always Say Yes to Adventure. Going back to the video that you showed before about us making the gun barrel theme, great that you filmed you guys making the music. That's a question directed towards you. Did you have it in mind to have a making of video back then when you decided to film? Because I remember we filmed other things as well.
Yeah, we did.
In that very room.
I just thought of that while watching the clip. We are both German speakers and we speak English in the clip. But as you well remember, Alain was there as well, my friend from Paris. So in order for him to understand us it's very impolite when there is one person who does not speak German and you speak German all the time. That's very impolite. I hate it where also at work when my colleagues speak Turkish to each other. I hate it because everybody else is automatically excluded from the conversation. This is not a polite thing to do. So that's why we spoke English. Of course, setting up the camera and record that moment when we created the music was just, record making of footage, because we were in the process of making that. And there was a bit before that when you started to get the guitar and say, we can do this, we can do that. It's a very long recording, I think it goes on for 40 minutes or something. And I always found when the camera was not running and something really nice happened during the making of a scene, I said, why did I not have the camera running? This would be such fantastic making of footage. And I would say this to every filmmaker: when you have enough battery packs, let the camera run to capture as much as you can, because production of films, especially today, it is such a long time you spend making a film, such a long time you spend with everybody who is involved in making such a film, and capturing what goes on behind the scenes is so vital for film researchers and film fans, and it's just a joy to look at. I mean, the other day I watched, and I know this material inside out, I watched all the documentaries about Jurassic Park, and I got the Steelbook, and I watched it all again. I've seen it over and over, but I love to be reminded of what went into making a film like this. And I certainly wanted to remind myself of how it was to go through that journey together with you, to make the music, to go to these places, to experience these things. And I mean, we filmed, as I said, over 150 hours of material for this film. Making of and actual scenes.
And I think it's very good you do it, because, I mean, funny enough, in many cases nowadays, the whole behind the scenes of making of, I mean, I remember in the 90s when I grew up, generally the interest in making of, let's say, games or movies was not that massive. I mean, it's been an increase in that kind of special interest in the last couple of years, especially stuff that is a couple of years older. But back then, especially what I remember in the Pierce Brosnan era, that did it much better than do it nowadays. I mean, from GoldenEye, Tomorrow Never Dies, there are so many making ofs and so much extensive behind the scene footage, B-rolls, etc. Something they completely lost track of, not only the Bond producers, but nowadays you find it more difficult to find good making of stuff as opposed to like 20, 30 years ago when the technical limitations or the technical hurdles were much higher than nowadays. I mean, like you say, nowadays you record everything digitally. You can record everything you want, and they do it worse than they did it 30 years ago. So that's quite a stunning thing, and it's very commendable that you had that in the back of your head already, because it's also the preservation aspect of it plays a massive role as well. I mean, if one day people not only want to see the documentary, but also what went into it and what would happen behind the cameras, this is essential.
And in some locations, like the clip I'm going to show you now, you might remember the scene when I speak about the death of my mother. And there is the sentence in the film: there was nothing left except for destruction and pain. I think it went something like that. My whole world was destroyed. And in front of my eyes, I had a scene where something was destroyed. And I thought, oh God, how am I going to manage that? And we found this hotel, a lost place near where I live. It's just 45 minutes away from here in the Harz Mountains. It is a spa town called Bad Harzburg, and one of the oldest hotels there, which had a casino and everything and a ballroom, was left unattended for years and years. So it was run down, it was collapsed, the parts of the roof had collapsed. and it was a popular spot for lost places photographers, and people who made horror films, fan horror films, things like that. So my best friend and me, Sarah, and the daughter of my ex-boss, Ashley, we went to that place and we snuck up on the hotel through the forest. And of course, you could not go there. You were not allowed to go there. So actually, we were on forbidden ground. It was forbidden to go there. And it was horrifying, because it's dangerous to do these things, and I would tell you now, don't do it if it's unsafe. If it's labeled as unsafe, because you don't want to die doing something like that for filming. You can easily find something else. But I saw this collapsed casino. The whole roof had come down, and I thought, this is exactly the image as it looked inside of me after my mother died, and I want exactly this shot. I want me in a silhouette against this backdrop of this destroyed casino. And it was a very short scene, but I remember I recorded a making of explaining the location. And in that moment, when you are there, as terrifying and as exciting at the same time it is, you have to set up the camera and speak about that place. And that's what I didn't do in other locations, because I knew this was something special. And I think 3 weeks after we filmed there, the whole thing burned to the ground, because one of the people who do lost places photography had a cigarette there, threw it away, and the whole thing burned down. And they had so much fire people on location, I think from 6 different cities, because this fire was out of control. They had to get private people with their drones to fly over the fire, the roof, because they could not locate where it started. This was a massive thing. It went to all the newspapers, and this place has now been...
I remember, yes.
It has been torn down, so it doesn't exist anymore. So the footage you're about to see is among the last footage that was shot in that place. We were among the last people who shot in that place. And that's why it is so important to have the camera running all the time. I show you the footage. Here you go.
For the creative element of the film, we came to this eerie location, which is an old grand hotel in the spa village of Bad Harzburg in Lower Saxony, Germany. The hotel is totally run down. It was built in 1874, and in 2008 it closed down. Most of the place is totally destroyed, but we need it as a stylistic element in the film, and we have to be careful here, cause police could come. We're definitely on private property, but things you do for a film. Let's take a look inside, shall we? So when we go through this door, we have the old ballroom and casino, which was once one of the grandest hotels in Bad Harzburg, and now, as you can see, is totally destroyed. Perfect for filming, but it's dangerous to walk here, because some areas of the hotel have already collapsed, and we made a scene there, and then you can see how dangerous filmmaking can actually be. You go places you would never imagine you would go, and now we're here, and look at that. There's still a table, perfectly laid out. Everything else is destroyed. Like my life.
I have to put a joke in everywhere, but it was partly really terrifying. Yeah, it was not an easy shoot, but I knew it would look great on film.
Yeah, it did. It did. And it was, like you said, a nice representation of linking an actual visual image to what the feeling was. So that's a very good filmmaking trick. And I just like to catch up, if you excuse me, with the comments, going back a little bit. Gareth wrote a little while ago, would love to see another blast from the past video, Benjamin, if you have any left. from the Brosnan era not yet done. I
Oh,
think
there's so much.
we've okay. And then Always Yes, Say to Adventure said, I was 25 years in the film business as a storyboard artist. That's cool. It was making of Raiders of the Lost Ark that inspired me to be a filmmaker. Yeah, that's exactly these things. These making ofs, they can be so inspiring to actually decide to delve into these realms, like you did with this documentary as well. For I mean, it's been pretty much that also. Maybe not because of a making of, but because of the love for something that you have.
And I give you a good tip there. Always Say Yes to Adventure. There is on Vimeo, I think, there is a filmumentary, it is called, by a guy who did a 2-hour and 26-minute cut of Raiders of the Lost Ark, and I think also Last Crusade. I'm not really sure, but mainly I saw Raiders of the Lost Ark, and he collected audio commentaries, interview bits from Steven Spielberg and everybody who worked on that film, and he put together a documentary. He calls it a filmumentary. That's how you will find it when you look it up on Vimeo. It is a fantastic storytelling effort. The making of the Raiders of the Lost Ark, fantastic to watch, and a fan did that. Incredible. I mean, they did great things on the Blu-rays of Indiana Jones, but sometimes fans, we really dig deep, you know. Sometimes,
and we can't get enough.
Absolutely, that's true.
And you've mentioned like Jurassic Park before, and I remember so many of very extensive and very detailed making ofs of how they first wanted to do stop motion, and they switched to computer because of a couple of presentations. And also the Star Wars people used to be very, very strong at this game. I mean, even from the older movies, like it was much more trouble. And when they figured that, like, and it's the same goes for Bond movies as well. Like nowadays, you keep and sell props because they go for a lot of money. But back in the day, they just threw away everything, and they just didn't think that people were interested in making offs. And went from that era, like 60s, 70s, 80s, even maybe 90s a little bit, when they have extensive making offs from those eras, I really have to give them a lot of props for it, because back in the day, it was not taken for granted that people would actually be watching that.
Absolutely. You're right. I just love making offs. I soak them up like a sponge. And also the Bond ones. Once I got the Ultimate Editions, watching all of that, and they have much more in their archive, believe me. They have much more. And at some point there will be a new edition, and we will get 4K releases. Yes, it takes time, but in the end, all of this will get released. Most of it will see the light of day. I'm pretty sure of it. And there was a question towards Bond 26. Gareth asked if we will see some news in 2024. I think we won't, personally. I think it's going to take at least one more year until they start working and have some official news. I'm not getting my hopes up. Don't want to go too much into the subject right now, but since the question came up, I think... personally, no, but I'm happy to wait. I'm used to waiting nowadays, in regard to Bond. But I mean, I can do other things. I can do things on my channel until then. Try to smooth over the time. I mean, it's difficult for content creators to come up with new stuff, smoothing over the time that they need to put out a new film. But hey, we do our best. Always.
And Gareth followed up with another question when he asked, when do you think we will get a box set of all Bond films in UHD 4K? Why we have not gotten it yet? Well, I just can't help myself to just make this comment before I pass the question on to you, is that last year would have been the absolute greatest occasion to come up with these things, like extensive archive releases for UHD 4K box releases. The 60th anniversary would have been the great occasion, and they mucked it up completely, if you ask me.
Yeah, I agree. don't want to go too much into the subject because that would
No.
explode the scope of this live stream. But we can certainly touch this subject again in an upcoming live stream. We can talk about that if you're all happy to jump into a live stream with me. I will do that. The next 2 weeks is Easter holiday here in Germany, so I'm absolutely happy to do another live stream on everything about Bond 26, what we have and what we don't have, and also about future releases and the releases that we got, like the ridiculously expensive Taschenbuch of Dr. No, which I think is a ridiculous release. And I have much more to say about that, and I'm sure I will find some guests who will also be willing to share their insights. But yeah, that is for another day. Yannick, I have one question for you,
Yes.
obviously, regarding the music, making the music of A Bond for Life. What would you say was the trickiest thing to compose? The trickiest scene in the film, or the trickiest section of the film?
My mind sort of goes to two things. One is the main title song, which was sung by a former work colleague of mine. I mean, to sum up a whole life and this story that is so overall the score, it was a lot of fun to write on one side, but it was quite a burden, because hey, this is not just some entertaining movie that just someone put out there. I mean, obviously in every movie, how good or bad it might be, there's always a lot of people and money and effort involved, but this one, I knew that it was a personal story about you, and of course you wanted to deliver some meaningful music and not just some throwaway stock music. So that was one thing. Then it's even harder to put it into one song, to be able to come up with a couple of lyrics that tell a bit of the story, that also includes the main title, the name of the documentary, and to actually make it something that is somewhat at least meaningful. And then I can't remember, the third thing was, I can't remember exactly why it was, but those skiing scenes were, I can't remember the details why, but I remember I had a hard time scoring those. I think it was because of the weird harmonies. It's a great track or say template by John Barry, the sort of secondary theme from On Her Majesty's Secret Service. Da, 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 da. And this has quite a couple of tricky things, and we wanted to have that, of course, corresponding with the skiing scenes. That I remember was tricky, but I can't remember why it was specifically.
But I really liked the music there, because it brought back a thing that we said in the making of. I said, I want to make it my thing. I don't want music copied over, but in the end we did it a lot of times. We did it in the Octopussy sequence. You recreated John Barry's sound, which fit perfectly to the scene, and of course for the skiing scene you just mentioned, you recreated the On Her Majesty's theme, which blended perfectly with this with the Kitzbühel horn in the fog. A by chance shot that I got, because you wake up one morning and you open the window in your hotel room and you see that, and you automatically grab the camera before the music is even written. And later you cut it to what the composer delivers, and this is exactly the shot. This was exactly the opening shot. And the ski scene was supposed to be much longer, and it had different scenes in the raw cut that I did, but I didn't like them because I hadn't skied for many years, and they just looked awful. And what I recorded, or what I used for the final film, was actually the result of 4 hours of filming, and usually it's the last 2 takes that are good. The rest before that is shite. And I remember the filming in Kitzbühel was very important to me because it is such a vital part of my childhood. Kitzbühel was a holiday retreat of my family, and with retreats, going away from your hectic daily life, they leave an impression on you and on your soul. And this is such a beautiful, magical place. As Becca said in the stream of the film, it's a magical place, and it really is. And going back there after so many years, at some point you have to pause and you have to turn the camera off and realize this is where my childhood happened. And these places almost look unchanged. And there was a lot in the film that we did not use, that we shot there. The one thing we shot there was this, I think, 8 camera position shot of me sitting by the lake. And, well, I had to move the camera, then go back, sit in the same position, had to move the camera again to a higher point, go back and sit in the same position. That's how it was filmed. And this is how many shots came together. But they look so seamlessly in the film, but it was a lot of work. That's why, and you laughed at it, I was out of breath on the mountain, because you're very high up on the mountain. It's over 2,000 meters high. Of course I'm out of breath. I'm Fat Benjamin. And I mean, you see a lot more in the behind the scenes that I will show you now. It's the longest. It's with almost 10 minutes because we spent 5 days in Kitzbühel and in Sölden. We went there for 1 day because the new Bond film had just been filmed there at the time when we were making this documentary. So, of course, we needed to make a side trip. And my friend from Paris, Alain, he accompanied me, and he paid for a lot on location, and I'm forever thankful to him for that, because otherwise these Kitzbühel scenes would not have happened. So here, with also the few occasional outtakes, here is filming the Kitzbühel and Sölden sequence. Enjoy.
Kitzbühel is just one of my most favorite locations in wintertime. It has been a holiday retreat of my family since the early 1970s, both in summer as well as in winter. And 2014 was the only chance to go back to Kitzbühel after an absence of 16 years. I'd last been there in 1998, together with my grandmother for a skiing holiday over New Year's. And what I immediately recognized was there was absolutely no snow. And Kitzbühel just looks really great and stunning in a lot of snow and covered in a lot of snow. But there was none, and still we had to film. We had these 5 days to film all the scenes that I wanted to film, about Fleming, about myself, and a bit of going back in time to the locations of my own fan film, White Countdown. So what you can see here is the first location we used, the wooden dressing rooms at the Schwarzsee, which translates as the Black Lake into English, a very big lake for bathing and everything. I was there a lot as a child, swam across the entire lake once. I remember that very vividly. And here I did the first narration for the very first connection between Ian Fleming and me. And again, this was very tricky to do because the film is unscripted and I just make stuff up while I go along. So this already took a lot of takes.
The first connection between Ian Fleming and myself can actually be found in this old wooden building, which is old. Oh, again.
I invented a selfie stick. I did not invent it, obviously, but it works.
We had decided to spend our second day going to Sölden, which is not really around the corner from Kitzbühel, so we had to get on a train and a bus for 3.5 hours, which is quite nice because the trains run on time and they are very comfortable. And Sölden was, of course, the location for the Bond film Spectre.
I look winterly stupid. And without glasses because there's no sun. I never know what I can use. Except that I'm very, very, very fat. I'm the fattest person on the mountain. That is a bit too Blofeld. Great film work today. We did good. For
got to eat the octopus, but okay. But that's really quite Bond style, having something like octopus goulash, but it's very, very fancy thing. It's perfect for visitors coming here because that's the only thing they want. Champagne and posh food. And the village is not even that big. Actually, it's very, very small.
The next day started with a lot of fog in the valley, and we went on foot to one of the hills where my family was always staying in a guest house. And this was my trip back in time, actually. And there's a very, very small church that you can see here, where people actually go and have little services.
16 years ago. Really, really small. Imagine everybody being in here tonight. And they have all their people who died. I want to find a familiar name.
Just a bit further up the hill is the Platten Lake, with this lovely boathouse. Used to be a boathouse, and I remember that very well from my childhood because we always went up here to swim in the summer, and I still have photographs of that. And it's a very peaceful setting, tranquility in itself, basically. And we had a lot of time to film several camera angles here because there were absolutely no people. I would have loved to see it in the snow, but okay, cannot force it. And this is on top of the Kitzbühler Horn, where we went later that afternoon to film a lot of scenes with the connection of Ian Fleming to me and my family, and of course my fan film, White Countdown, I made up here.
Script. Cheating. My dear friend is so very patient with me because I just spent 1 hour on the mountain, and here is, they call him the patient one in Chinese, Chinese whatever.
We then strolled through the city centre to just capture a few night scenes, and I had one narration left that I wanted to do in Kitzbühel, and it didn't go without problems.
He was not a tough man, quite the opposite in fact. And oh fuck, okay, at least it was good until the beginning. He was not a tough man, quite the opposite in fact. Oh god. That's horses for you. But he lacked confidence. And? Oh, shite. Almost. Almost. He lacked confidence. And temptation was... When am I out of shot?
Yeah, this would be my most exhausting but exciting day because I was getting ready for my skiing sequences that I really wanted to have in there. So we went up to one of these ski schools and rented a pair of skis along with shoes. And yeah, then we went up into the skiing area.
These are the shoes of the true 007 agent, which is of course me. We're going up the mountain now. Don't mind that there's no snow, we're actually in a skiing area, so... And I'm gonna film a few skiing sequences.
I was very excited, I was nervous a bit, but basically it's like riding a bicycle, you cannot forget what you're doing. Still, the weather was rather challenging. So these test shots that we did were in total snow. You see it in front of the lens, which is of course not a good thing for the camera. And up there where I skied there was a lot of ice, so it's not good to drive. You of course have to carry the skis back up. He was rather fun. So it just happened. And you see me there in total fog. This is something you cannot actually use.
Before we filmed this scene, the audio recorder actually switched to recording WAV instead of MP3, so it produced a very, very large file. And in the end, it stopped before we recorded this scene because the memory card was just full.
I've had enough. I've had enough.
I certainly had enough when I saw the material, because immediately then I knew I had to dub myself back at home, which I did. This actually looks like more fun than it was, because at that moment I was really done for the day. And back in the day when I was 17 years old, I could master 6 hours on the slopes. And now, well, you get older. That's a fact.
I'm done.
Imagine me doing this now. I'm 8 years older. I couldn't do it anymore.
This is a great way to end the segment. I'm done.
I'm done. I was really, really, really done. These were 4 hours of filming the ski sequence, and I was just done. Because it was such a remote part of the slopes. There is actually a hotel on the mountain, and we went around the hotel. It is not an official ski slope, but that's why there is no lift. So I had to carry my skis back up whenever there was a mistake. And there were many.
Yeah, and like we've established before, it's always the thing. You have to keep the shots in the head. You have to actually take care of the filming. You have to do your takes, and then also add to that the fact that you have to do physical stuff. I mean, this is exhausting.
It is. It really was. But and then for a few seconds of film, you know, that is the magic of filmmaking. You spend half a day filming, or the quarter of a day filming, and you end up with like 10 seconds of usable scenes. It's much like another good example is the dance sequence that I cut down for this version you saw on YouTube earlier. It was a 19-second dance sequence with me and my best friend, where she wore that glorious red dress, and it took I think 4 hours to rehearse, because my friend Danny Morgenstern, who's also in the documentary, a Bond expert and author of many Bond books, he's also a dance instructor. So I wanted him to come up with a choreography to the song All Time High, but done from the David Arnold album, where David McAlmont, I think, sang it. I'm not really sure if it was Pulp. I don't remember. And this was the version that was in the film before I put it on YouTube, because that, of course, is copyright music, so I had to take it out. And it was replaced with your composition, Yannick, Letter to Paris, which we, of course, know from the Bond game Tomorrow Never Dies. You know?
Exactly. Right.
And so we had these 19 seconds of dance timed exactly to All Time High. And it was so funny, because I cannot remember steps that you teach me. I just can't. I'm too stupid to dance. And there was a quote from what was it, a film I saw, or a series, I don't remember, where somebody said, men who can dance are just no, how was it? Oh God, I'm trying to get it back together. Men who dance are just too sloppy to drink, or something like that. So you can spend your time drinking instead of dancing. Dancing is a wonderful thing, but I just can't do it. I'm too stupid.
Okay.
And that's what you see in a final film. 19 seconds of dance, 4 hours of rehearsal, creating the choreography, 2 hours filming it until it looks right, for 19 seconds.
Right. Exactly.
That's one day. Gone.
Yeah, right. That shows the dedication, and I mean how much went actually even into the tiniest detail of this production. And since we were just watching the behind the scenes of one of the locations, we're sort of slowly coming, to the end of the stream. We have been on almost 2.5 hours.
2012.
Yeah, it's been exactly. It's been great so far. And guys, if you want to throw in a couple of questions that are left, please feel free to do so. I have 3 questions left, and the first I would like to ask is, we have seen a couple of locations now, and you've talked about a couple of them. Are there? It's a sort of a double question. Are there any locations that have not made the cut, or are there locations that you would have loved to have visited but never got around to doing so?
As far as I can remember, all locations where we filmed made the final cut. Even just tiny things. Off the top of my head, I cannot remember not using something. And it is interesting if somebody who watches the film can name all the locations. Like, for example, with my best friend, when we filmed in Belfast, not everybody will know that it's Belfast. Not everybody will know or immediately recognize that I'm standing in the dry dock, in the Thompson dry dock, which once housed the Titanic. Only an experienced eye who knows Belfast or the story of the Titanic will realize that. And I love and researched the story of the Titanic, so it is both tied to me and to my best friend, whose father is Irish. So that is very clever. So I'm not only paid attention in selecting the locations to cater to the needs of Bond fans, but also to the needs of the people I interviewed. It must be connected to my story and to their story as well. And I think that fit nicely together. But I don't think there was a location we didn't use. Locations I would have wanted to film in. Sure, plenty. I would have littered the film with locations, but you have to remember this is a very expensive thing, going to these places. And depending on what you need to film, the amount you need to film. Like Kitzbühel was 5 days, and you don't want it to be continuous filming. You want to have a walk or a nice dinner. And this was done over Christmas 2015. Where we've 2014 or 2015, I don't remember what year it was exactly, but we wanted Christmas Eve. We wanted to have a nice dinner, so you need to finish early enough so that you're not tired. I remember on the 25th, I watched the Queen's speech in my hotel room, which is something I do every year. Now it's the King's speech, obviously. I did that before dinner as well. And this costs a lot of money. I mean, the entire amount of the film was between 5, 7, and 10,000 euros, something along those lines. When you count equipment, and the biggest budget point was obviously traveling, because it's flights. Trains, hotels, not so much equipment, because that's it was my personal private equipment. Of course, I bought a tripod after I lost the other one. Great. But I spent much more money on camera equipment after having done this film, because I thought this is really what I want to do, and I need good equipment for that. This film was shot in 1080p HD. But since I do most of my content on the Bond Bulletin in 4K, even this film looks dated. When you are used to crisp, clear 4K, And I wanted to do a conversion into 4K, but it would have taken days to render. And some scenes look good, some don't. It's not worth it.
And I mean, I remember back those days when we actually, I remember when I was in Braunschweig at your place, that we were always talking about cameras and equipment and stuff, when it was, I mean, it's almost 10 years ago, when you have to imagine that, you didn't have, it wasn't the time where every single the most cheapest camera was almost in 4K and stuff. I mean, you really had to, you were on a budget, of course, and the technology was not as evolved as it is nowadays. So to get a simple GoPro with even 1080p was already very expensive, and so you always had to kind of figure out what is a good middle way between spending money wisely on the equipment and still get good results. And so that was really difficult to do overall. I remember that.
That's true, yeah. And I always trusted Panasonic cameras for most of the time, and this one never let me down during filming. Only a couple of times where it found the background much more interesting than me, and it kept switching focus, which I hated. Like, for example, when you watched the interview with Béatrice Libert in Vaux-le-Vicomte, the camera found the castle much more interesting than Beatrice, who was right in front of the lens. She's out of focus during the entire interview, and you only see that at home because it's impossible to see on the tiny screen when you're actually on location. Everything looks fine there. That's what I said before. Everything looks really fine on a small screen. When you go back home and you see it on the computer, it's out of focus, and then of course you're back home.
Yeah, but then again, it does some very nice shots. What stuck out to me in particular were two scenes. It was the overview from the Austrian Alps, where you could see very much afar, and the color was very nice. And the other one was the shot where he did the interview with the president of James Bond Switzerland. Where really he was very in focus in the foreground, and still in the background you could see those very crisp, sharp, nice blue tinted colors of the mountains, and everything was just the lighting and everything. It was really, so the equipment, sometimes it let you down, and sometimes it performed even better, I think, than you could have ever anticipated.
Yeah. London is one of these examples where I filmed on the Mall, and you have Buckingham Palace in the background, and because it was the Tour de France at that time when we filmed, they had all the Union Jacks up on the Mall, and I thought this is the perfect image. And we also did that twice. We went there in the morning, where there were very little people, just a few cars around, a few taxis, and I could walk in the middle of the road and do my narration. And again, the microphone malfunctioned, and I already saw that in the hotel, but I thought, oh God, no, I'm not doing that again, because it depends on the day. The city gets full, and even the Mall is full. And I did it again the next day in the morning before we started our tour, because we went into the Docklands where they filmed The World Is Not Enough. This is far out in London, so we were there most of the time. And I went in the morning with the good morning sun, with a lot of people on the Mall. So I went just behind that arch, put the camera there, because there is sort of a fenced off area where cars are not allowed to go and not many people go. And the camera did the same thing again. It switched focus because there were so many things in the camera picture. There were people taking photos, there were the flags, there were cars, the trees, and it does this focus shift between me and the background several times, but I had to leave the scene in because it was just such a perfect image. And at one point, as much of a perfectionist that you are, at one point you still don't care. You like the shot and you take it.
Right.
You win some and you lose some.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Another question I wanted to ask you was actually going back to what you asked me before, and it's just quickly talking about the score. Was there a favorite piece that you had when you watched it, when you listened to it, or whatever?
Yes, there was the composition in the interview with my former boss, and when I speak about him and his family, there is I don't know how the track is called. I would have to look it up in the soundtrack, but it is this orchestral sweep in, and this is such a wonderful, I cannot explain it. It has a magnificent sound. Thank you for being here, Joao. Just quickly going to wave goodbye to you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for being here. Glad you liked the film. Thank you. So it has this magical sweep in, and much of it gets lost because there is the talking in the documentary. But this is one of the tracks that stands out for me. Yeah. It has a lot of emotion in it, a lot of glamour. It has a lot of glamour. This track has a lot of glamour. Yeah.
Yeah. That's great. And so thank you for the nice words. And the last question I have personally that I wanted to put to you is, of course, now A Bond for Life has been done over 8 years ago, and it's great that's now been released. And of course, throughout the last 8 years, you were not inactive. I mean, you have graced us with many productions, trailers, tribute stuff, live streams, conversations, interviews, and everything. So the Bond Bulletin keeps churning out stuff. But I was wondering, like for big projects, was this it, or do you have something in the back of your head? Will there be a continuation? Will there be something else, like a more elaborate, bigger production or something? Could you let us in on a secret, maybe, or is there anything planned, or what? Can you tell us something about that?
After the filming of A Bond for Life, I went full Daniel Craig and said I never do that again. Never. Because it was, the scope of the project was so big for me, and I've never done something like this before. I'm not a professional filmmaker. I just gave it the best shot that I had. Thank you, Jochen, for being here.
Bye, Jochen. Thank you very much for your time.
And have a nice weekend too. Thank you. But of course, I would be happy to do something like that again. I love filmmaking in the way I do it. I have got myself some better equipment now. I mean, I've got 4K cameras all around. I can literally do everything with my phone. But I have some ideas for bigger features, and it's good that you asked that question, because just yesterday I thought about going back to one of my old ideas, speaking to the wives and girlfriends of Bond fans and make a feature about being married to a 007 fan. Because it is a side you don't often hear. And as my best friend said in the documentary, she said something very interesting. She said it's not annoying being the best friend of a Bond nerd / Bond fan, but it's sometimes exhausting. Because, of course, we keep talking about Bond, and then there's Bond this and Bond that, and I know from the relationship I had with my ex-girlfriend who was not into Bond, I caught myself a lot of times saying, oh, you know, this happened in a Bond film as well. Or, you know, Bond traveled there as well in 1979. It was, everything is always about Bond.
Right.
And I know that this can get on people's nerves, that you speak about references they don't get. And I can imagine, and I met many girlfriends and wives of Bond fans because they always accompany their husbands to events. But they might not be into Bond. But there are others who got turned into Bond fans because their husbands are totally crazy about it. And they just got infected with Bond virus. And I think that would be an interesting documentary feature. Shorter, not 2 hours long, like in the normal conventional format of 30 to 45 minutes, something like that. Yeah. But something in the scope of A Bond for Life with 2 years of filming, probably not.
Okay. Well, anyway, whatever you do, you know, you can always count on me, and it's always a pleasure to work together with you, and I'll be happy to provide more if I can be of any help. And Tom Baker also has a little suggestion. He says, I hope you interview the wonderful John Glenn again. I think from as far as I know, the likelihood of that happening is getting smaller, because I think he's getting quite frail, isn't he? It gets more difficult to organize these things.
Yes, I was fortunate enough to work on a documentary feature about John Glenn, which was done by the people behind the festival that he was invited to here in my hometown. There was a feature documentary made on him. The narration is in German, and the behind-the-scenes facts are in German, because there are film researchers who comment on his work, and the interview with himself is subtitled. There was no dubbing involved. And this was already quite comprehensive, and it was filmed at his home, in his garden, I can't do something better, I think. Is this film available globally, commercially? No, because it was a festival production. It was shown at a film festival in Carlo Vivari, I think, also connected to Bond through Casino Royale. It was a very, very great film, highlighting much more than just Bond. And I think he told his story there, as I said, in a very comprehensive way. There is no way for me to do something better. Yeah. And in my channel, there is a great interview with John Glenn from when he was here during the festival, where I asked some questions as the host, and he just keeps on talking in his lovely, all-encompassing way. Check out that interview. See if you're satisfied with that, if that answers all your questions. As you said, I think time is running out on that. I could always ask him. I'm in constant contact with him. I have his email address. I can ask, but at some point, he would probably say yes. But at some point, I think it becomes tiring if you always have to speak about Bond and Bond exclusively. You know, you could make it a feature about his whole work. But as I said, he told this story before in a film, and I don't want to copy other filmmakers or invade their territory.
Yeah. Right, exactly. And just on a little side note, because you just brought it up, just by the way, if you are interested in Carlo Vivari, Benjamin has also made a great documentary on this channel where you can see a little bit about its connections to the Bond movie, and a little bit you can experience and visit the city digitally or virtually by checking out the video. So I really recommend that. It's watched it a couple of times, and I find it very interesting to see these things. Yeah.
And my filmmaking approach was exactly the same. Go up early in the morning, try to capture the best shots you can, and return with the best material you can. And this was just 2 days. Yeah.
Yeah.
But this is how I approach all of my videos. Do the best you can. If a take is shite, don't use it. Do it again, if you can. And most of the stuff I do at home, every video on the Bond Bulletin is quality checked by me. So if I don't like something, I throw it out or I do it again. But, well, the rest is self-explanatory. I mean, the ones who've seen my videos, a lot of effort, a lot of passion goes into that, and it's nothing more, nothing less. It's just passion.
Yeah.
And I probably want.
But you can. Yeah, it translates. You know, you can tell because it's this video on Carlo Vivari is great. I hope you do more of these sort of more extensive location visits. I remember at one point we even discussed together at the prospect of perhaps even being able to go to Arecibo, which now, of course,
too late.
You know,
yep.
Yeah, it's too late now. But yeah, definitely hope we can look forward to more of these.
For some things, it's just too late. Yeah, and that's also where I want to end this live stream with the way the story is told, the way I decided to tell this story and put my story out there. As I said after the world premiere, one person came up to me and said, I would not do it. I would not be as brave to put my story out there, my personal story of a parent dying and going through these difficult phases of one's life. I would not do it. And I said, why? Why not? Why not inspire others if you turned out somewhere? I mean, some people go towards breaking point with losing people, and it is a fact we will lose people through our entire life. At one point, you will start losing people. Relationships will fall apart, friendships will fall apart, people will die. It happens to all of us, and it happens to the people that we know, because at some point we will die.
Exactly.
Some will die sooner, some will die later. And my mother died when she was very young. When I was very young, I was 15, she was 47. A wasted life, because it could have all turned out differently. But the important fact I want to arrive at is I hope that this film inspires a lot of people to pull through. Life is tough for some people, and in many instances, all of us, we have a different life story. And I've seen some social media posts in the last couple of weeks where people said, I can't anymore. I think I'm a bad person. I think I'm finished. I'm no use in the world. This makes me incredibly sad because after my last relationship broke down with my ex-girlfriend, I was, or still am, 1 year on now. It's just over a year. I'm at the same point again where I was after losing my mother. I thought, I'm insignificant. There is nothing left for me in the world. Nobody would notice if I'm not there anymore, which is wrong. It is absolutely wrong. It's okay to have these thoughts because everybody of us will maybe at some point arrive there. And then there are evenings like this where I am reminded what kind of a story I had, and I'm still here. I pushed and pulled through all of it. Not alone. I always had help, and I still have help by a community that is here tonight, sits with us, watches this live stream, watches the film, has nice things to say about it. And this is what pulls you through in the end. No life is ever wasted. Nobody is ever unimportant. Nobody is boring. We're all great people, and you should all remember that. That is my message with that. And before I end this live stream crying, we stop. Or before you cry.
No. I just said I don't have anything to follow up. I mean, this message was very clear and very well put. So everything I say could just mess it up. So I'm just going to leave it there.
Okay. We mess up some other day. We have a lot of things to mess up. So, everybody, thank you very much for being with us on this wonderful premiere night, finally showing A Bond for Life after 8 years of it being on the shelves. Now it's there for everyone to see. If you haven't had a chance to see it yet, go to my channel and watch the Bond Bulletin for more content. You can also go to the playlist of A Bond for Life, How James Bond Changed My Life, to find much more behind the scenes features that I uploaded a long time ago. It's all there for you to enjoy. Much of it is narrated. So there is much more than we can cover in these 2.5 hours. Thank you everyone for being with us, and see you very soon, and have a good night and a good weekend. Yannick, you have to say goodbye as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Benjamin. It's been a great night, a great experience, and I want to thank you first and foremost for doing this, for making this possible, and thank you for everyone who has joined us. And I wish you a very good night and a great weekend as well.
Thank you. With that, goodbye, everybody. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.